ChatGPT is another truly disruptive technology. This has the power, in my opinion, to literally replace the phrase, "Did you Google that?" If I was Google, I'd be terrified.
Let's talk about AI, and I know you're a fan of ChatGPT. Where did you first come across this tool, Jake, and what are your thoughts on it?
So I spent a lot of time in forums, and I started to see it pop up in hacker forums, ethical hacker forums, where people would say, you can literally use this to say, I want to exploit company A, and this is the skill set I have. Give me some suggestions. And the responses appeared pretty staggering. Like, I remember being back in the day at IBM when there was a lot of buzz around Watson and what Watson was capable of and could do. And that's an amazing piece of disruptive technology. IBM really paved the way for what happened in AI. I think that's an unequivocal fact. But ChatGPT is another truly disruptive technology. This has the power, in my opinion, and this video will stand the test of time, to literally replace the phrase, "Did you Google that?" If I was Google, I'd be terrified, because Google can only return results that exist in the form they exist. ChatGPT can return results that don't exist without having to consume any actual or regurgitate any actual data. Like, that's a staggering shift. That means that education, how do you catch someone who's cheating in an essay? If the essay's been written with a coherent logical thought path that you can't use the traditional methods of checking against databases.
Yeah, I think that there are already products popping up, though, to try and stifle this stuff from happening, isn't there? You know, to try and sniff out AI-generated content. How effective they are, though, I don't know. But it'll be like the red team, blue team penetration testing stuff that you're into, isn't it? It'll just get like that, like everything else, an arms race. But,
which is good, because it shifts it forces technological adoption and kind of improvements when there's a constant fight against each other.
Yeah.
But, ChatGPT is a fascinating technology. It's made us think. Like, we sat there at the beginning of this year and went, what are our product roadmap pieces? We rose the idea of ChatGPT and went, you know what, like, we should change the way our product works. Maybe we can leverage some of those capabilities and technologies to say, rather than saying, here's my questionnaire, Gareth, can you please fill it out? Why don't you fire it at a pre-existing profile knowledge base, have it pre-complete the answers in a new written coherent form? I mean, that's what the technology really does. And therefore do away entirely with the requirements for humans to enter kind of security questionnaire data. It can truly change everything.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoken to people who've looked at it and have not been that impressed. And I just think, wow, it's because they don't spend the time actually engaging with it. So, for example, if I wanted to write a blog on cybersecurity, you know, I know people who've just done it, write the blog, read the blog, that's not that great, I could do better, and just judged it. Whereas if you say, make it funnier, make it more concise, make it more sophisticated, act as though you're a cybersecurity expert, especially in ransomware, and then write it again. You know what I mean? Things like that. So if you interact with it, the outcome at the end of you being explicit is astonishingly good, isn't it? I mean, it's amazing. But the thing that really excites me, Jake, is the fact that this is ChatGPT 3.5. I think ChatGPT 4 is coming out later this year. Can you imagine how good that's going to be? Because the current version's only up until 2021, isn't it? So we'll be after all the updated stuff. But this is the first step in a journey, isn't it? Which is probably going to result in some incredible technology over the next couple of years.
Well, if you come back to my world and you think one of the things that I used to love and one of my real passions inside of hacking is ethical hacking or social engineering. So this concept of like how you can manipulate humans into doing things for you to save you having to do traditional network attack methods. They're becoming harder and harder. Like breaching AWS is not easy, but breaching someone in a random IT technical services or HR team is a lot easier. But also traditionally trying to get those messages through. So much of your Gmail alone picks up spam attempts. It'll pick up any kind of phishing email, right? And get rid of it. The idea of like trying to pose as an African gold miner who's going to give you back $10 million for your $1 million investment doesn't exist anymore. But ChatGPT opens up whole new worlds. Like imagine saying act as an HR representative for Procter & Gamble and send a message to your company asking them to respond to a recent employee survey. Like the capability for it to learn, to scan the data that exists and phrase itself into a way that is truly more convincing than I can do from a mimic perspective.
Sure.
But then also do that at a scale. Like that's that could be really disruptive in the phishing world. We've seen a real decrease in phishing over time because people are getting smarter, but that could really spike it way back up again in the next year or two.
Yeah, like I know of people who are advertising themselves as blog writers on Fiverr and using ChatGPT to do that for them, pretty much, and making decent money from it. I've heard of others getting ChatGPT to write trading bots to trade cryptocurrencies and forex and stuff like that. And apparently the results are they work, and people are making a living off this stuff. How much of a threat is this to people's jobs? And is AI, because we've been talking about this for years, but it's never really played out on scale. Is this the beginning of that? Do you think we're going to see a lot of people losing their jobs over the next 5 years?
Yes and no. Like, we've been playing the whole robot scenario out for decades, right?
Since Skynet, since Terminator.
Yeah, I mean, and before then, like 1984 and stuff, like it is really around this concept of technology evolving and controlling humans.
Sure.
There will be jobs, of course they'll go. Like Google and Amazon and others are desperately trying to claw the way out of needing lorry drivers, because not only are they expensive to pay, but there's a higher risk of them crashing than a computer-controlled lorry.
Yeah.
In principle. We've already seen drone delivery bots and those little robots. You see all the drone that you see in San Francisco, at least anyway, delivering stuff. And we're starting to see places where you look at factory lines today versus factory lines 20 years ago. There are definitely sectors where employment is under threat and will continue to be under threat. ChatGPT has the ability to basically say no to call centers, right? Why would you need a call center? Yeah. It can respond audibly. It can respond to my questions better than a person can. Plus, it won't get tired or annoyed at 5 p.m. So your standard customer service will always be the same. Yeah. And that takes out an outsourcing industry. We outsource a lot of that kind of job to the Middle East and to the Far East. Maybe that goes away. But with every shift in technology, there's often other avenues that open up. So we talk about cybersecurity, right? The skills gap. Well, there's a skills gap. There's a human capital gap. So you can say, well, there's a massive issue with we're losing this industry. My industry is starving for people to go and train and become proficient in what we do. And the same will be true. Maybe ChatGPT will take away a whole section of our current economy, but it'll create a whole section too. Because you can't just leave things. There's always going to be a human subjectivity element, which is important. And there's always going to be new capabilities and competencies that are going to be need to audit, manage, vet, maintain. So, yeah, I think there are jobs under threat, but I think there's also the chance for jobs to be created at the same time.
The skills gap is still very bad in the cybersecurity world then, Jake. Is it? Have you experienced that firsthand? And what are you doing to get around that as an organization?
It's not necessarily even the skills gap anymore. It's the word has become problematic. Cyber, infosec, these words have become difficult.
Yeah.
So like our jobs change so much. Like I now might own the strategic or corporate risk register, which used to belong to a CFO. I might now own IT, which used to belong to the CIO. Like I might now deal with engineering that used to be purely in engineering, but maybe I deal with the whole of an SDLC, a secure development lifecycle. And the jobs becoming more and more far-reaching. So it requires people who are either specialists in certain sections or have a broad and diverse skill set to be useful across the whole piece. There is a skill shortage. I mean, it's hard and long to hire, and to get good people is expensive. Like analysts can genuinely ask for six-figure salaries in parts of the US, straight out of college or university. And in the UK, it's not too much lower.
No.
The bigger problem is actually because people have seen the branding around the cyber skill shortage and seen the salary bandings and seen the, I don't know, Mr. Robot, the guy in the hoodie that looks cool, right? There's now a lot of people applying without any real experience or knowledge. So a lot of the problem in the skill shortage is actually sifting through what might be 200 resumes or CVs, of which only 50 are actually even remotely applicable. So I'd say that we've got a double whammy now. Firstly, there isn't actually enough people in the market for the positions we've got. And secondly, half of the people that do apply aren't actually remotely qualified. They're just trying to get into a new area. So yeah, it's definitely a thing. How do we combat it? Well, I spend a lot of time on stuff like this. Webinars, conferences, blogs, speaking. I talk to everyone I know about the fact that this cyber's not going away. Right? It's not going anywhere. The same way that when you talk about, if I speak to kids, I run a youth group at my church, and if they ask me about careers and stuff, I'll be like, go become a coder or a cyber analyst, because those two jobs aren't going anywhere. Everything else, who knows? But they're not going anywhere. So I think we have to promote, we have to educate. Like you asked me at the beginning, the unrecorded bit, to make sure that I was careful with lingo and to explain. That's a big problem. Explain to people what we actually do. I often think, like, when I hear my wife answer people, what do I do for a living? I often sound like Chandler Bing. Like, it's like she's not really entirely sure. So I think we need to get better at selling our own profession. And given the opportunities at a level, like you ask like a 16-year-old what they want to do, they all think they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a professional footballer. Like they're things which we've educated society to believe these are well-paid, solid, good professions. Technologists and cyber inside of technology should be there.